Hello, once more, and welcome back to the channel. Back here on YouTube, doing the 2024 Week 14 Big Ten prediction video series. After going 7-1 week number 13, my personal season record is now 95-29. Week 13 was also the third straight week I finished with one incorrect pick. Going into week 14, 9 games on the schedule. Getting into it, should be fun to see this weekend. Looking at all 9 games, it looks like. Actually, 10 games on the schedule. Actually, my bad. 10 games on the schedule this week. Looking at the games that are going to be happening. So as we get into it, let's get started. Starting out with Friday afternoon's game, the first game of the day on Friday afternoon for Black Friday on CBS is Minnesota going into Wisconsin. The Badgers 5-6. The Gophers with a better record this year. They are both two teams that Wisconsin is one of those teams. They're trying to get a win to get a bowl game from Minnesota. If they win, they can bring the Axe back home to Minneapolis again for Paul Bunyan and the Axe. And this matchup looks like one of those games. It's going to be a traditional Big Ten style game where both teams, they pass the ball, they run the ball a lot as well. Both teams do that a lot in this matchup. And it's going to be one of those matchups that will happen with both teams running the ball quite a bit in the matchup. And overall, I think it's one of those games that's going to be interesting to see. And at the end of the day, it depends on which team doesn't make mistakes. If Wisconsin makes too many mistakes like they have in the past this season, they're going to lose this game. But if they don't, they're going to get it. I think they can stay in it. I like Minnesota. They're going into this matchup playing on the road. I think Minnesota goes in to Madison, Wisconsin. No, the Badgers. This is the game that must win for Wisconsin. Minnesota knows Wisconsin's vulnerable, and I think Minnesota takes care of business this week in a close game against Wisconsin on Friday afternoon here in Madison, Wisconsin, against the Badgers. Game 2, Friday night. The Nebraska Huskers, Cornhuskers 6-5, going in to play the Hawkeyes. 7-4 game on NBC, which should be a fun matchup on Friday night. A game that's been in the Big Ten game since 2011, where these two teams have met up on Black Friday. And this year, no different. First time they're playing under lights between these two teams, which should be a little bit interesting to see. Iowa coming in 7-4, Nebraska coming in at 6-5. Nebraska going to their first bowl game in 8 years almost. Iowa, on the other hand, without their quarterbacks, only on the fourth string quarterback. Question is who's going to be the starting quarterback in the game. It's going to time will tell though who's going to be the starting quarterback in this game. For Iowa, they've made mistakes 2 years ago when they played in Nebraska. They lost 20-17. And this game looks like one of those games again. That Nebraska, if they can stay in this game with Iowa and force Iowa to make the mistakes, that's going to happen. One of these two teams that will have the edge. I think it's going to be a close game, like it has been in the past. And every game between these two teams has been close over the last 4 or 5 years. One-score games over the last 4 or 5 years, and I think that happens again this year. At the end of the day, I think Iowa takes care of business at home against the Nebraska Cornhuskers and get one number 8, as I do think Nebraska is going to fall to 6-6. Unfortunately, finish 500. So I do think the Hawkeyes make some big plays this week and on Friday night. So get the Hawkeyes a win there for me. As we get into it, moving on. Michigan Wolverines, they're going to Columbus, Ohio to play the Buckeyes on Saturday afternoon in the game. Biggest rivalry out there in the state of Ohio for the Buckeyes and the Wolverines of Michigan. These two teams play great when they play each other. Michigan comes in with a 3-game winning streak in the series overall. Ohio State, those 3 losses, unfortunately, have not been their best games. And it's also one of those matchups you look at and say, Michigan this year, they've had a bad season since the last 3 years. They've gone their way. But Ohio State's the team that has the better record, 10-1 coming in. A win for Ohio State. They should be going to play Oregon in Indianapolis on a week from Saturday. Should be interesting to see how that plays out. These two teams also have high scoring games over the last several years. Michigan, though, the last 3 times they've come away with wins. Once in Columbus, twice in Ann Arbor. I think Ohio State coming into this with a team that's so good at 10-1. It's going to be interesting to see who makes big plays. Ohio State can make big plays. Michigan, they're a team that's had a tough season with a new head coach. Michigan has just been one of those teams this year. They're not the best this year, but they can play well. If they do good, and if they can play good, both teams will play good, I think. I think Ohio State, though, a little bit more better offensively. And their defense is just as good. I think Ohio State plays Michigan to the point, but I do think it's going to be a close game again in this rivalry for the first time in a few years. But I do think the Buckeyes come away with a win playing at home this year against the Wolverines. They get to Indianapolis in a week from Saturday. Moving on. Illinois, who we know is going to a bowl game. They're playing Northwestern on Saturday. That's the game at Wrigley Field on Saturday afternoon. Should be an interesting game. Both teams. Northwestern, though, this year they have not had a good year. For Illinois, they're having a spectacular year, a better year that year compared to Northwestern. Northwestern was a team that last year made a bowl game, was surprise teams. For Illinois, on their side of things, they're just a better team this year. In a matchup, the last time these two teams played at Wrigley Field back in 2010 when they played at Wrigley Field, Northwestern got a big win. No, Illinois got a big win back in 2010 when these two teams met at Wrigley Field against Northwestern. And Northwestern, unfortunately, in their games at Wrigley Field in the last 3 years, or in the last decade and a half, 14 years you could say, Northwestern just has not won any of those games. They're 0-4 combined. Or I believe, 0-4 at least that I know of. For Illinois, this is a game that they can come in, play well. They do good, they can get a big win. I think Illinois gets the win, takes the Land of Lincoln Trophy, and gets a big win on Saturday afternoon at Wrigley Field in Chicago. So give the Illinois the win there against Northwestern for me. Moving on. The first non-conference game of the night, we have Notre Dame, represented with the Big Ten helmet here. They're going to USC, the Trojans, on Saturday afternoon. For USC, they're a team that has 6 wins, I believe. Team that has 6 wins or 7 wins of the year, but they want to get to win number 7 for USC. For Notre Dame, they're a team that comes in with a pretty good record this year. A team that looks like they can make the college football playoff at the moment. Playing against USC in the Coliseum game for a trophy. For Notre Dame, this is a game they know they can win. For USC, this is a must-win for them to play, to improve their record, and just get a good bowl game this year for USC. Unfortunately, coming into this matchup. Notre Dame, they're a pretty good team. USC, unfortunately, on the other side, they've had a tough year in their first year in Big Ten. One of those many new Big Ten teams is with UCLA and also Washington that have had a tough year. USC coming in 6-5, 4-5 of the Big Ten. They know they need a win. If they don't, they're going to fall in 6-6. Notre Dame, though, is a better team. They know how to win. With this being said, I think Notre Dame's going to be the team that gets to win this matchup. Unfortunately, I do think USC falls to 6-6 in year number 1 in the Big Ten. So give me Notre Dame in this one at the end of the day. Moving on. Our next matchup. UCLA coming in. At the bottom of the Big Ten, 4-7 of the year, 3-6 in the conference. To finish out, they play Fresno State. Non-conference game at home on Saturday. Should be another one of those matchups where it is going to be interesting to see. UCLA, 4-6. 4-7, like I said, for Fresno State. I don't know a lot about them out on Mountain West, by the way, at this matchup. But to say the least, UCLA playing at home in the Rose Bowl. They're 4-7. They've won most of their games at home this year. Their only game they played well down the road, they beat Nebraska in Lincoln. So that was one of their surprising wins. The other ones all came at home for UCLA. This one, I do think, though, that UCLA is going to hang on and get a win here against Fresno State on Saturday afternoon. So give the Bruins the win here in their final game of the year to get to 5-7. Moving on. Penn State coming in 10-1. They have Maryland this weekend in a game that should be a rivalry. Maryland coming in 4-7, 1-7 overall in the conference. Penn State coming in 10-1 on the year, 7-1 in the Big Ten. Three-way tie for second at the moment. Penn State needs multiple things to happen. They need Ohio State to lose, and they need Indiana to lose as well. They guarantee a shot at a Big Ten title game against Oregon. As we know, Oregon at 11-0 is going to the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. Something that can play on with it. For Penn State, they're playing Maryland, a team that's 1-7 this year, 4-7 overall. This matchup, Penn State, they just know how to win. They have a great team. They know how to win. They put a lot of points against teams, and I think this is going to be another one of those games. With Maryland coming in, I think Penn State's going to do the same thing they've done to all kinds of teams this year. With a team that's not very good with 4 wins, 7 losses, I think Penn State gets the job done. Gets a big win. Scores a lot this week against Maryland, just like Iowa did last week. So give Penn State the win here for me in this one on a Saturday. Next up, we have Rutgers 6-5. They're going into Michigan State 5-6. Two teams in the Big Ten that have had a year of their own. Two teams that want to improve their win. For Rutgers, they want to improve their win, get to 7-6, 7-5, and get to a better bowl game. For Michigan State, a win, they get to a bowl game at 6-6. Look at Rutgers and Michigan State, two teams that are trying to just play their final game and get wins. For Michigan State, they definitely need a win. For Rutgers, if they get a win, get to 7-5, they'll go to a better bowl game. Hopefully, we'll see. I do think it's going to be a close game, though, in this one. I do think we're going to see a game where two teams that want to get wins play hard. And that's why I think some of these games this weekend could be close. And that's what I think is going to happen this week. And with that being said, I'm going to take Michigan State playing at home this week against Rutgers to show Rutgers how you play in East Lansing. Because Michigan State can always get surprised people. And I think that can happen this week as well on Saturday night. Moving on. We have 10-1 Indiana Hoosiers playing the 1-10 Purdue Boilermakers. Unfortunately, this is Purdue. They're 1-10 record, 0-8 in the conference. Indiana 10-1 on win. They'll be 11 wins in the year, 11-1. They'll be a football school, just like they are a basketball school. For Indiana, that's pretty cool to see that they've surprised teams this year. They've won interesting games. Only loss was last week to Ohio State. I think it can be a game where, even if they win, they do need some things to happen this weekend to make the Big Ten title game against Oregon. They do need some things to happen there. They need Michigan, and they need Maryland to help them out. And I think Indiana, they do have this one in the bag against Purdue for the trophy game they're playing in. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, though, under lights on Saturday night in Bloomington. Can Indiana get the final win of the year? I do think they can. I do think that they're going to play Purdue well. I think Purdue's going to keep it close, maybe, try to get a win here. I do think Indiana comes away and gets a big win on a Saturday night in primetime. Moving on, one last game for the 2024 Big Ten regular season predictions. See what happens in this one. We have Washington going into play, 11-0 Oregon Ducks. For a chance to go perfect on there, to go 12-0, get their first 12-0 season as a Big Ten team. For the Washington Huskies, they just hope to finish their year strong. It's one of those games where Oregon, no matter what happens, even if they lose, they still go to Indianapolis in a week from Saturday. We will see what happens with that. Washington, they've had a tough year, 6-5. They've had tough years. They go out to the East Coast. It's hard for them out east for them to win. Staying at home, they've got all their wins at home. They went 6-5 at home, 6-0 at home, 0-5 on the road. For the Huskies, I think Washington playing just going south to Oregon. It's going to be a game, one of those games where Washington, I do think they're going to play well. I think they're going to keep this game close with Oregon, but unfortunately, I do think Oregon gets to 12-0 and finishes their season perfect. So there you have it. Week 14 Big Ten predictions in the books. I'll see you right back here next Thursday for the championship game predictions for the Big Ten title game for Oregon, whoever they play. That being said, I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving tomorrow and a great Black Friday. I'll see you in the Big Ten prediction recap video on Saturday night after Oregon and Washington, hopefully. If not, I'll have that in the community tab instead if I don't do a prediction recap video. So with that being said, have a good day. Stay safe. Peace out. I'll see you next Thursday, everyone, with the championship game predictions. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.